as you might be able to tell this morning, our cabinet, the governor's cabinet, has grown, and there are 3 people I'd like to introduce that have become members of the governor's cabinet. First person I'd like to introduce is retired Colonel Eric Hesse, who's the new director of the Division of Veteran Affairs. Eric, Colonel. By way of introduction, Colonel Hesse has spent his entire career serving our nation as well as our state here in New York. Most recently, Colonel Hesse was the Command Inspector General for the New York Army National Guard in Latham, New York. He spent 10 years serving at Fort Drum and overseas, where he held ranks such as Command Inspector General of the 10th Mountain Division. And Colonel Hesse is a veteran of Kosovo, as well as Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan and Operation Iraqi Freedom. Welcome to the Cabinet, Colonel.
Thank you.
Second person I'd like to introduce to the Governor's Cabinet is Brian Digman, who is our new New York State Chief Information Officer. Brian's right here. Brian now leads our new agency, ITS, Information Technology Services, which was part of the Governor's Enterprise Initiative, replacing the old Office for Technology. As we all know, ITS is going to prioritize all the technology needs and has been doing so already across the state, with the goal of not only increasing performance and accountability, but also increasing efficiency and customer service while achieving savings for the taxpayers. And we all know that there's been a number of technology initiatives underway that's been part of the governor's budget, including things like shrinking number of data centers and call centers. But through ITS, we're going to have a whole litany of new customer service initiatives and continue to increase the efficiency of state government. Brian, welcome. Last person that I'd like to introduce this morning that has joined the governor's cabinet is Mr. Richard Kaufman, who is not only the chair of our Energy and Finance Subcabinet, but is going to become the chair and CEO of NYSERDA. Richard? We're very lucky and fortunate to have Richard join the governor and his administration. By way of a background, he previously has served as senior advisor to United States Secretary of Energy, Stephen Chu, on renewable energy and energy efficiency finance and deployment policy. Prior to him serving as advisor to Secretary Chu, Richard was the chief executive officer of Good Energies, Inc., which was a leading investor in renewable energy and energy efficiency technologies, as well as a former partner at Goldman Sachs. So Richard, welcome to the administration and to the cabinet. With those introductions, what I'd now like to do is call on Linda Lacewell, who is special counsel to the governor. Linda is going to make a presentation on the governor's new initiative, or expansion of a new initiative that we started with the budget earlier this year, called Open New York.
Thank you, Larry. I'm here to provide an update on Open New York, which is about bringing the people back into government. In the State of the State address, Governor, you committed to this initiative, Open New York, which is designed to use technology to bring transparency to state government, improve government performance, and enhance citizen engagement. We've already made significant progress. Within 2 weeks of that announcement, with the help of the Division of the Budget, we launched Open Budget New York website. It's a single-stop website featuring New York's budget data with tools, charts, and current budget information available for download for researchers, plus historical data going back all the way to Governor Dewey. And that site immediately led to innovation as other groups such as the Empire Center created new tools with the ability to use this data. There is, however, still a lot more to do. In many ways, government is stuck in the 1950s. We generate treasure troves of data, but it's really not in usable form. It's very valuable, but that value is locked within the data. The data is not online, it's not searchable, it's scattered across state agencies. People don't know what we have, so they don't know what to ask for, and agencies themselves don't have the ability to coordinate across government to combine their data and lead to valuable innovation and efficiencies. This initiative, Open New York, is about reimagining state government to use technology to unlock that value in the data, take the information out of the file cabinets, put it online, make it available to the people, which will help improve government performance, harness innovation, and increase collaboration. So today, during Sunshine Week, we're pleased to announce opennewyork.gov, a new website that in one place provides unprecedented, user-friendly access to federal, state, and local data. This will dramatically increase public access to one of the state's most valuable assets, which is our data. The site already features over 200 state data sets, charts, and maps, as well as local data and thousands of federal data sites by virtue of importing it from a federal site. As of today, over 30 executive agencies and authorities are already participating and have put data onto this website, in addition to SUNY and CUNY. New York is now the largest state to have this kind of a website, a one-stop site that allows cross-agency data sets to be searched, mapped, and charted. And those are the eight states there, as well as the federal government. And at its launch, New York is already featuring more data than any of those sites did at their launch. So this is the shot of the website. At the top, it features our transparency sites and apps that are available with state data. It's also got a Twitter feed for the Open New York hashtag. And when you scroll down on the site, you can see the various data sets, which are searchable by agency or subject matter. And for example, if you want to select a particular subject matter, such as economic data, it will bring you the search results that you can then click on and get further information. Also, if you don't want to scroll down there, you can do a simple word search in the top left button, which is great for the public. For example, if you want to search phishing, search that word, it'll bring up any document that has that word, no matter what agency originated the document. So this shows you the various documents that have come up. And if the information is mappable and you click on it, then there's a way to observe it in a mappable form. And so here's a map of the recommended phishing sites from DEC. And if there's a particular region of the state of interest, such as the Adirondacks, you can click on a particular site there, here, Lake Flower, and that gives you more information there. The site has a particularly rich vein of health data, thanks to the great work and leadership of Dr. Shah. And this data is really valuable. It includes professional conduct information going back to 1990, hospital discharge information by facility and patient demographic for the first time electronically and without the need to file a FORA request, hospital cost reports that will facilitate research and analysis, and so forth. In fact, it's so much data that it's also separately collected and clickable from the home page of the health department, where many health researchers and other experts go. The site also features video tutorials to learn how to use the site and how to generate maps and charts and graphs. It's really beyond question that putting data online leads to savings. Even modest efforts by other states putting limited amounts of information online has led to savings in the millions of dollars in the areas of procurement and other efficiencies, reduced FOIA requests in other states such as South Carolina by a significant margin, and led to a reduction in the use of other items such as 311 calls for information because the information is just available online. Now, significantly here, we're not just putting state data online. This is also a tremendous resource for localities, for towns and counties that have valuable data of their own, but don't necessarily have a way to launch it, and it puts it all in one place. We've already obtained data from the City of Albany and from Essex, Oneida, Onondaga, and Suffolk counties, and many more we expect will follow. The state will provide technical assistance to the localities to help them to put this data online. And we envision this as state-local partnerships that will save resources, improve government performance, allow the localities to see what each other is doing and what's been successful, and enhance the robustness of our website at the same time. A win-win for everyone. To further expand and grow the site, the governor today is issuing an executive order to all executive agencies and authorities directing them to become prepared and be ready to post data, and in fact post data on the website. There's a handbook statewide that's going to be developed using the best practices with input from public comment. And together, we expect that this will all lead to an expansion of the site and help reimagine the power of collaborative government, which this site itself represents, because we've worked very closely with some of the good government groups, Citizens Union and others. And there's more to come. There will be much more data that will be launched over time. Existing app developers can develop apps from the data using the sophisticated API toolkit that's available on the site. And we also expect that the state will announce app competitions and hackathons to spark innovation with the data. So in sum, Governor, this is really about unlocking the value of data that the state already possesses, make it available to the people, make it visible, usable, and searchable to help spark savings, enhance performance, and lead to innovation so that together we can all achieve the best of a new New York.
Thank you, Linda. Now our next presentation is going to be done by Cesar Perales, who's going to talk about the Office for New Americans.
Thank you, Larry. These are the words that the governor included in his State of the State message just a year ago. And I had a series of conversations with the governor, and he charged me with establishing an Office for New Americans. Let me give you the context in which we had these discussions. We have over 4.2 million immigrants in New York State. About half of them are already naturalized citizens. Another 36% are legal permanent residents. These are people with green cards. And there's a smaller number, 14%, that are undocumented. I give you these numbers because it's very important for you to understand that while the American debate, the American discussion, seems to revolve primarily about undocumented immigrants, the reality is that the large majority of foreign-born people in our country and in our state are here legally and contributing to our country and our state. For New York State, this is a particularly important set of facts. In New York, 1 in 4 residents of working age, I emphasize that, is foreign-born. 1 out of 4 potential workers in our state is born in another country. And what basically I was charged with was trying to marshal all of our state's resources to see if we could ensure that we took full advantage of the skills, the talents, and the energy that these newcomers bring to our shores. And we've done a number of things initially that I just wanted to mention to my fellow cabinet members because I will be calling on some of them. The first thing I did was to sit down with folks like Peter Rivera at the Department of Labor and talked about making sure that we could link the talents that so many of these people bring with them to our country to vacancies that employers were saying to the Department of Labor they had. We want to do that aggressively to make sure that we address that issue. The other is something that Dr. Shaw and I talked about. You know, New York State prepares more people for the medical profession, trains more doctors than any other state in our country. Yet, we have a number of medically underserved communities in our state. And there is something called a J visa, in which you can be born in another country, and you can apply to come to this country to study. Many, many people come to this country, are trained to become the best doctors that there are in the world, and yet they're forced to leave immediately upon graduation back to their home countries. Now, you can get a waiver. You can get a waiver if you agree to work in an underserved, medically underserved community. So Dr. Shaw and I are going to work together to make sure that we can retain as many of these doctors trained here by us to stay in this country and move into medically underserved communities in New York State. Something else that Darrell Obertine and I talked about is new farmer development. I think the number that Darrell gave me is that how many do we lose over the last 20 years?
Farms?
Yeah, farmers.
We've lost roughly a farm a day for almost 2 decades in New York State.
And we've got people coming into this country, some of them refugees, who come from a place where all they know how to do is to farm. And yet we don't take advantage of that skill, to have them become the new family farmers. And we think we can do that. We're working with Burmese in parts of our state, Latinos out in Chautauqua. In many places, we are trying to seed new family farmers. Now, these are just examples of the way we want to marshal our state resources to take full advantage of immigrants, of new Americans. But the cornerstone of what we're doing is really seen in this map. We have established, working with community-based agencies, 27 opportunity centers. I call them opportunity centers because people will have an opportunity to learn English, to become citizens, to start their own businesses. These opportunity centers are backed up by lawyers. The color chart is because that's to remind me of where we each have a lawyer team. We've got 4 lawyer teams that respond to the needs of these new Americans, primarily to make sure that when they apply for citizenship, they don't get rejected. But they have a number of other questions. Can they bring their brother-in-law into the country? And we don't want them being scammed. And so we have, in addition to having these community-based agencies doing their work, we have them backed up by lawyers. We have, believe it or not, a hotline in 20 languages, multiple languages, operating 5 days a week until 8 p.m. It's called the New Americans Hotline. Now, let's talk just a moment about what happens in each one of these opportunity centers. Well, we believe that everybody who wants to learn English should be given the opportunity to learn English. So that we've contracted to provide structured instruction programs at each one of these places. There's a certain number of people that must be taught English annually as a result of this contract. We're recruiting and enabling community volunteers so that these people can practice their English. It's sort of a variation on the governor's labor for your neighbor. This is tutor for your neighbor. And we think that's going to help folks learn English quickly. And we use technology in innovative ways. We're talking about iPads and that kind of thing so that people can speak into it and find out what they sound like when they use the English language. And I talked a little bit about the entrepreneurial spirit, of the fact that these people can start businesses. You know, in this state already, 29% of the businesses owned in New York State are owned by foreign-born people. 29%. Well, with the help of Ken Adams, incidentally, who's been very helpful, we have set up entrepreneurial training in each one of these sites. If they're starting a business already, they're going to get one-on-one coaching. And we're even going to try to facilitate access to capital, which is one of the toughest things to get when you're trying to start a business. One other important factor is the fact that when we talked about the numbers, you know, we've got almost 1 million residents who are here legally, who've got green cards, who are not citizens. We want them to become citizens. They want to become citizens. And so we're going to encourage and facilitate getting U.S. citizenship. We're using technology again. We've got a program that's like a TurboTax, in which you go through it, and it tells you which way to go to fill out the form properly and not make any mistakes. We are also going to provide legal assistance so that you don't make a mistake. A lawyer is going to review your application for citizenship before you send it in. And sometimes these folks need a lot of help. But we think we can make a dramatic advancement in terms of getting people to become naturalized. We hit a peak, incidentally, in 2008, and it's been going down since. There are less applicants for naturalization because the exam is much more difficult. We think we can address that and increase the number of state residents that become citizens. And it will not come as a surprise that people who become citizens tend to earn more money and start businesses. That's it. I want you to know that we've got the New York State New Americans Hotline. That's the number. It's available. Try it in any language you want. You'll get somebody to talk to you. And we've got a website. It's a fascinating website. I just saw a bit of it this morning where we now have, for example, while we're teaching some people English, there are many other places that teach English. We've got a map on that website that'll show you 800 places where you can learn English for free, where you've got teachers and tutors that are going to help you. Not all of them obviously run by us, but we will tell you where to go if you want to learn English. There'll be some place near your home. I think we're going to work on that website. It's going to provide a lot more information. We're very excited about it. Let me just say that no other state has even attempted to do anything like this. This is unique. This is going to be very, very successful, and I think it's going to make a tremendous difference. Thank you, Governor. And thank you for the opportunity for me to run with this.
No. Cesar and I spoke about this, I guess, about a year and a half ago, and it is very powerful. First of all, you have a lot of states taking the position that immigration is a bad thing, right? A lot of state governments are spending a lot of time figuring out how to keep people out. The first point this makes is, philosophically, our perspective is the exact opposite. We see immigrants as a source of strength, good for the workforce, good for the community, et cetera. So we want to lean into it and find out how to facilitate it. I love the name, the Office for New Americans. So just the fact that the government is doing this and trying to facilitate it, I think speaks volumes. And it was Cesar's idea. I think it was a brilliant one, and it was well executed. So well done, sir. We're going to open for questions now on the database that Linda Lacewell went through. They talk about disclosure. This is Sunshine Week, and communicating better with people. This is probably the greatest area for advancement, I think, single area. This is not something that government does particularly well, using technology and using apps and using the latest technological devices. And we have all sorts of information in government that if you could just organize it and get it out, it could do tremendous work. Disclosure, we work on it on a number of levels. I think this is actually going to bear the most fruit. Just getting the data up, getting it up where it's usable, where it can be compared, where it can be correlated. That's going to be a tremendous advantage. So well done on that. Questions, comments for Cesar or Linda? Pat?
Linda, does the website have real-time traffic and other data up today?
It has the capacity to do that, and I think especially as the localities join, we've got the technology to make that happen, whether it's snowplow information, traffic and transit information. We expect that to be coming soon.
There's 2 websites where you can get health data, both the health.data.ny.gov and open.ny.gov. How do you envision these 2 websites to play off one another, or what roles will they play?
Sure. Well, the concept with data is no wrong door. Someone who wants to go to the main website and search across the board or combine different subject matters within their search can do so on the Open Data, Open New York website. For health experts and health researchers who may be used to going to the health homepage, they've got the ability just to focus and zero in on the health data there. But there are really 2 tools that are available. They may end up attracting different audiences, but no wrong door.
What does that mean, by the way, no wrong door? Sounds great, but what does it mean?
It means whether you go to the Open New York website or you go to the health website, you, the user, you're not making a mistake. The data is wherever you might expect it to be. You don't have to know. It's the same concept that you talk about, the breaking down of silos. It's one government. You shouldn't have to know what agency has the data.
Great. Anything else on this? Okay, we'll open the floor for any questions from the press. Otherwise, well done, Cesar and Linda, really. Let's give them a round of applause for a great battle.
Governor, the VA has said that it won't be able to abide by the SAFE Act in terms of reporting the mental health difficulties of veterans. Is that something your administration has been apprised of, and what's your reaction?
You know, I don't know the specifics, Casey, but first of all, what the law says, it leaves it totally up to the mental health provider if they want to come forward or not. It's totally up to them. It's volitional on their part. And then depending on the institution or the organization, they may have pre-existing legal parameters. Some organizations just say at the beginning of the day, all communications are confidential, period. All information is confidential, period. So it's going to have to be viewed in light of their legal structure in the first place. But it's up to them.
Governor, we said he's expected to pass this budget today, and apparently will include the $260 million that was taken away from the city of New York. Is that going to create a potential problem between you and the Assembly? I know you said that that's not something you're willing to accept, and could that potentially...
Have I said that, Sam? You know, everything is a potential problem. The question is, do you let it rise to the level of being a problem? Yes, it is a potential problem. I don't believe it's going to be an actual problem, but it is a potential problem. If not handled correctly, it could be a problem, but it will be handled correctly. And we will not restore the funding for the City of New York for the past year. Because, look, the budget also continues that basic provision. This is the provision that said if a school district doesn't do the teacher evaluation, they don't get their percentage of the state increase in funding. Why did we do that? Because we had tried everything else in the world to get them to do the evaluations. The evaluations were supposed to be the best reform in education in a generation. The state applied for a federal grant. We won the grant. The evaluations then sat there for years and nothing happened. And we tried many different avenues. We then linked it to the funding, and then compliance went up, Zach, to 99%. We want to continue that for next year also. So it's important that the rule is enforced, because if we don't enforce the rule, then going forward, we're going to have a problem.
Do you see anything at this point holding up?
I'm sorry, excuse me. I also understand the Speaker's position is he does want the money to New York City restored. But we have many differences of opinion going into this budget. We're going to have a leaders meeting this afternoon. The time frame is somewhat compressed this year because of the religious holidays, et cetera, and we're shooting to get it done on time. So it's going to get down to the short strokes basically this week. Anything could. Anything could. I was somewhat teasing my friend Zach, but anything could, you know. If any party digs in on any one issue, and it was a critical issue for someone else, anything could. So we want to get it done, but we want to get it done right. And there are a number of significant issues and controversial issues that are on the table.
Governor, given the short time frame that you just mentioned there, in regards to the fixed rate pension plan, you know, you've got to get the lawmakers to agree to it, the pension funds to agree to it. Is there enough time to get that in place before the budget deadline as it is?
Look, time is short on all these things, but is there enough time to get everything done? I believe so. But you're right, given the compressed time frame, you're trying to get a lot of work done. The end of this week, in some ways, if we don't have the lion's share done by the end of this week, it's going to make it tough to hit the schedule that we've established. But we've been working on all these items for months to begin with. You know, it comes down to closing more than anything else. And it usually comes down to a political judgment. Does somebody want to do it or not? By the time we get to this point, we know the feasibility, we know the capacity. These are political judgments of the respective houses and their constituency.
Do you anticipate the pension smoothing plan in some form to be in the final budget?
Yes.
Or is that something that you're willing to
Yes, I do.
Governor, two things. One is, when do you expect to have a new president named for NYRA?
Oh, I don't know what the time frame is in the commission. Do we know?
They're doing a search process.
Yeah, yes, buddy, but I don't think we established a time frame for the new one. They're in the midst of the process. I can check as to when they think they're going to get it done.
The second thing is, I understand that letters have gone out from OGS to previous tenants who were in the concourse and asking them if they would consider coming back or if they knew of other people who, what's going on there? Are you going to open that up again so that we have shops to go to or whatever, and there's funds coming into the state?
Commissioner DeStito from the OGS.
We are trying to fill the space, and we're trying to add a diversity of services to the tenants that are here in the Empire State Plaza. As you know, we restacked, we brought more people back in, and we're trying to satisfy customer service by bringing more services back into the Empire State Plaza.
Is there going to be a change in the food service program?
We will be, yes, those have all been out.
When will that start?
It should be within the next few months.
It's going to be all Italian food, Betty, so. Yeah, every type of pasta you can imagine.
Governor, the Senate had a hearing this morning on potential effects on youth services programs of the minimum wage boost, saying that if it falls during the summer, it could cause as many as 10,000 slots statewide to be lost. Is that a compelling reason for you to push off the effective date or the issue entirely out of the budget?
No. No. I understand the Senate is opposed to raising the minimum wage. They've made that quite clear a number of different ways. I don't.
This is the IDC running this hearing, so.
Well, yeah, well, they're part of the Senate coalition. So I understand their point, but it's in the budget. I'm going to work very hard to get it done in the budget. If it's not done in the budget, the world doesn't stop spinning on its axis. We can come back and get it done over the next couple of months, but I'd like to get it done in the budget.
When are you planning to issue the action plan for how to spend the CDBG money that you're supposed to be getting from the federal government?
That will be done shortly,
Can you give a more exact time?
within the next couple of weeks.
Governor, do you or Bob Beckman have numbers on what the Assembly and the Senate One-House bills have added to your budget plan, either in spending or tax cuts or anything like that? Is there like an analysis you can give us of what they have done over the weekend?
Yeah, I don't know if we've done it yet. Have you gone through do you know the numbers?
Both houses aren't totally finished yet, so we're still refining it.
As soon as we have numbers, we can tell you, Tom. What happens is, for our new friends who are here today, the governor puts out a budget presentation. The Assembly then does their own version of the budget. Senate does their own version of the budget. We then sit down and try to come to a common ground among the three of them. The Assembly and the Senate now put out their quote-unquote one-house bills, and there'll be a variance between their budget and the executive budget, and that's what has to be reconciled. They'll add things, they'll take things out, and depending on the level of the variance and more the severity of the variance suggests the degree of difficulty in actually coming to terms. From the issues, you have major policy issues that are on the table. Minimum wage is a major policy issue. The stop and frisk is a major policy issue. You then have some problems on the economics, but more they're policy issues than economic issues, from what I've seen so far.
The Assembly's also putting some money for the DREAM
DREAM Act this year. Obviously not something that necessarily needs to be in the budget, but they want money allocated in case it does pass later in the year. Are you opposed to having funding in that for the budget?
There's a difference between the Assembly and the Senate, DREAM Act, DREAM Fund, and that's one of the issues that we have to reconcile, Zach, as we go through it.
Governor, on hydrofracking, in the middle of February, Commissioner Shaw had cited 3 studies that he's looking at or assessing at this point. Can you or Dr. Shaw clarify what role you see those studies playing in the state's review, given that none of them are expected to be completed in the next year plus?
And nobody ever said that we were waiting for those studies to be finished, right? We said that the Department of Health was going to be looking at those studies and seeing if there was anything instructive in those studies. But nobody ever suggested that we were waiting for those studies to finish, because then there was a follow-up study that said one of the studies hasn't finished for 10 years or something like that. So, and there was a breathless story that said, now it's going to be 10 years. We never said you have to wait for one of those studies or all 3 of those studies to finish, just that they would be looked at during the pendency of the Department of Health review.
But if those studies, if you don't have any results from those studies, what value are they to the Department of Health's review?
I don't know. Call them up, look at them, talk to them, and find out. Maybe they're totally useless, in which case they're useless. Maybe they have some information that's instructive to you, in which case you use the information.
Last one here. So I visited with EPA officials last week, and I visited with Geisinger officials 2 weeks before.
And we're continuing to work with our experts to determine what is their role relative to our overall review.
And you had said that your review would be done in the next few weeks, and that was a few weeks ago at this point. Where do things stand, and what kind of timetable are we on now?
The governor's been very clear to let the science lead, and we've been working with our experts very closely, going back and forth. So I anticipate that we will be done in the next few weeks. There's no real timetable. We're learning more information as we go. We want to make sure that we cover all of the ground and not rush to a decision.
What's your impression of the science so far, what you've seen?
Well, the problem is it's a moving target. The science is moving, and we need to make sure we understand what are our needs relative to the moving target of the science.
Do you see any situation where you would wait for the completion of those studies before you issue your funds?
No.
If I can follow up on Tom's question to you and Bob Megna about the White House bills. I understand that you haven't fully analyzed and come up with an exact number of what they're going to add to the budget. But are what they proposing in your analysis balanced, or are they proposing spending or tax cuts?
No, the first discussion is, from what I have heard, I don't think the numbers add up, which they very often don't, by the way. Because when they do the White House bills, they get to put in a lot of things that they would like to add. Theoretically, they're supposed to show where they get the money for all the things that they would like to add. My experience has been they're much better at finding things to add than finding sources of revenue. And look, if you could do everything, if you could cut taxes, do a middle-class tax cut, do a tax cut for small business, restore the DD cuts, more funding for cities, if you could do everything, then you would do everything. The problem is we deal with an economic reality at the end of the day. So I get the political impact of the White House budgets, but the numbers have to add up, and I don't believe the numbers add up.
Governor, you guys expect to have the cuts to DD restored in the final budget?
I said that was one of the suggestions from one of the houses, was to restore the DD cuts. Yeah, well, look, we did. Obviously, we didn't want to have to make the cuts if we didn't think we had to.
Governor, you said there was a dispute between the Senate and the Assembly, DREAM Act, DREAM Fund. Where do you weigh in on that dispute?
That's one of the matters we're discussing now. I've been talking to the Assembly and the Senate to see if we can work something out.
What's your feeling on it? Where do you stand?
Yeah, I'd rather do it with the Assembly and the Senate and not do the negotiations with you.
Governor, the Assembly passed a moratorium, a 2-year moratorium on fracking. Senate's considering a similar bill. you sign a bill like that?
They would have to pass a bill first, and I don't believe that bill passes. They've had passed moratorium bills that didn't go anywhere either, and my understanding is that the Senate has said that they have no interest in passing that bill. Also, we're not looking for a political resolution here. As you heard many times, we want a conclusion based on the science. And I get all the tumult and the emotion about fracking. I get that there are a lot of paid lobbyists and consultants, who are beating the bushes. But it's relatively simple and straightforward at the end of the day. There's a potential economic upside for the state, especially for the southern tier. We get that. There's also a potential for negative health consequences, and we're very careful about that. So we want to know what we're doing before we do it. People say, well, some states went ahead and started fracking, and then they figured out what the effects of the fracking were. I want to know what we're doing before we do it. Call me crazy, but I found that that tends to be a better way of operating. Not that I always do it, but I've had better experience when I actually do that. So we want to find out all the facts that we need to know on the science and then make the determination on the science. I've told Commissioner Shaw to use his due diligence and to be comfortable with the information. And this is what he does. It's not what I do. And when we have the facts, then we'll make a decision.
Governor, one area that the Senate is looking to cut is funding to implement a number of the gun initiatives that you passed in January. Is that something that's under discussion, or do you just rule that out?
I rule that out because, Ken, they passed the bill. If you pass the bill, you then have to have the funds to do what the bill said, right? If you didn't want to do what the bill suggested, then you shouldn't have passed the bill. But if you pass the bill, then you need the funds to implement what the bill says. Also, I don't know who in the Senate, the Senate, we have a multi-headed situation there. The Senator Klein, I know, has been very aggressive the other way. So I don't know what who or what, but it's something we'll talk about in the leaders' meeting. But it's not something that I will entertain.
If I could go back to fracking just for a second. Your environmental advisor on shale gas and other matters, Robert Paulman, left. Can you tell us why he left?
I didn't have anything to do with fracking. We're 2 years into the administration, and you will see a natural turnover in the administration. People, given the pressures of this job, given the economics of this job, many people can't do it for 4 years. They certainly can't do it for a lifetime. So many people come in, they do 1 year, they do 2 years. At one time when I was in the Attorney General's office, when I started interviewing candidates, I started asking for a 4-year commitment. That lasted for about the first 3 interviews. I was then down to about 1 week commitment. I couldn't get a 4-year commitment because people just couldn't afford to do it. The salaries weren't enough, so you had a lot of people who'd come into the AG's office. They would be living off their savings, and they could do it for a period of time. When they exhausted their savings, they had to go back to the private sector. The same is true here. So I talk to a lot of people, and I have people who come, who join, saying they're only going to be here for a year. But 1 year, 2 years, that's very common.
I mean, if issues like minimum wage and casinos come out of the budget, are you concerned that you lose your upper hand in that situation? I mean, obviously with the budget extenders, et cetera, that does give you an upper hand.
I know the conventional wisdom that during the budget process, the governor has more quote-unquote leverage because of the extender process. That extender process is a very ugly process to begin with, right? Once you go the extender route, it means you are in a hostile situation. So I wouldn't want to go there unless we really had to. So I don't anticipate that I have more leverage because I'm using the extenders, because I don't anticipate using the extenders. On the issue of casinos, I think the Assembly wants them, the Senate wants them, and I want them. We just have a different version of what we actually want. It's not going to be a question of leverage, I think. It's, can we come to terms with a common plan for casinos? And if we can't do that during the budget, we'll do it during the session. It is a complicated issue, and given the short time frame, it may very well be that casinos waits for June. But it's not a question of leverage. It's more a question of just how much time you have and how complex the matter. What was the other one you raised? Minimum wage, again, you could do in both places. We have 3 different positions, plus or minus, but we know the issues, we know the situation. So I don't see it in terms of leverage. And the time differential between the two, you know, we talk about it like, well, is it in the budget? Because if it's not in the budget, then it can't be until session. We make it sound like session is years away, you know. The rest of the session is only a few weeks after the budget. So once you discount the leverage theory, and that's not how I operate with the legislature, then it's literally weeks. And it's also workload. It's allocation of workload more than anything else to me. Because when you have a complex issue that takes a lot of hours around the table, you try to allocate those complexities between the budget and the rest of session.
On the issue of casinos, you have said that you want the first 3 upstate. The speaker says he's fine with that, but he would like the second round to be delayed as much as 5 years. He wants there to be a multi-year gap in between the awarding of casinos, with the idea that it would, A, enhance the value of the first 3, and it would also not oversaturate the market. Is that something you would be willing to consider?
That is something we anticipate, because can the speaker, I agree with the speaker on this point, on the casinos. If the franchises upstate are going to be worth money, they're worth more money if you can promise that there's not going to be a casino in New York City. Because the theory is the New York City market will go to the upstate casinos. If there's a casino in New York City, it reduces the value of the upstate franchise. So when you're bidding the upstate franchises, one of the big questions is, can you promise me, or the legal equivalent of a promise, that there won't be a casino in New York City for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? The longer that period of time, the more the upstate franchises are worth.
Governor, the head of MGM, kind of to that point, comes at it from the other direction, that those upstate casinos would be of limited value as franchises because the franchisees would know that eventually whatever the pause is, they're going to have to compete against those downstate casinos. What's your reaction to that?
Casey, that is the yin and the yang of this situation, right? And there's also no doubt, our first casino plan was a casino in New York City. Why? Because you will make the most amount of direct revenue, we believe, with a casino in New York City. That casino will do the most business and make the most revenue for the state, just if you're looking for a cash return. That was plan 1. Plan 2 was, how do we use the casinos to do something different, as opposed to just raise a lot of cash, stimulate the upstate economy? And that's where we are on this plan. And then the question is, how long a period of exclusivity do the upstate franchises have? And there's a big difference between 0 and 5, or 6, or 7, or 3. And that's one of the complexities that I was referring to before that we're trying to work through.
Governor, on minimum wage, if it does get pulled out of the budget, talk is in the Senate, they want tax break or tax incentives for small businesses. Is that something you support?
Look, I support lowering taxes whenever and wherever possible, right? From day one of my campaign, to the first state of the state, to the second state of the state, I've said it's all about the economics. The economics are what drives the train, and you have to change the mentality of New York State as the tax capital, and you only do that by the reality of actually reducing taxes. So whenever possible on the numbers, I support it. Now, when we come to the budget, so people want tax cuts, great. Middle-class tax cuts, small business tax cuts, and more spending. That's a problem, because there's only so many shekels on the table, and that's all there is, and math is still math, so how do you do all of the above? And that's what we're working through. But do I support tax cuts, small business, middle class? 100%.
In a bill with minimum wage?
Yes. Not in exchange for, but if we could do them, do I support them? Yes.
Governor, the Commission on Judicial Nomination has sent you a second round of candidates for the Court of Appeals. Taken together, they've sent you all Democrats and no one with criminal prosecution experience. Are you satisfied with the diversity and the quality of the candidates they sent you?
You know, Bill, I am, by and large, satisfied with the product of the Judicial Commission. Is it perfect? No. But have these selections been, I would argue, they've been better than many past selections, let me put it that way, without picking a particular committee or period.
Chairman, the Assembly budget proposal includes funding for additional funding for municipalities, including New York City. They restore about $140 million in AIM funding. How do you feel about that? Is that something you can support?
That'd be great. I support all of it. I support everything they all have in their budgets. If they can figure out how to pay for it, I'm there.
This is the last one. Governor, Nick Martin's been now reporting that, in fact, the IDC and the Republicans have actually put the minimum wage in the budget. Were you aware of this, and do you think that's a sign it will?
It's a sign of progress. Maybe if we stay here and we keep talking, we get the whole budget done, just like this. Yes, except that is a sign of progress. That means they're willing to discuss it in the budget. Now the problem is we all have different minimum wage numbers. So that's what has to be reconciled. But it is a positive sign that they're saying they're willing to talk about it in the budget. Then we just have to get it done in the budget. And Glenn, I don't want to be tongue-in-cheek with you. What they do in the one-house budgets is everybody puts in their ads of things that they would like to do, and then they can say in their one-house budget, well, I wanted to do that, didn't wind up happening, but I tried to get New York City $140 million more. I tried to get the upstate cities. I tried to put back the DD cuts. I get it. But the numbers don't add up. The numbers don't add up. And all of the things they're talking about are good things. And I would like to do all of them. I don't want to cut DD. I'd like to give New York City all the money they need, and every city in the state all the money they need, but the numbers don't add up. That's the difference between a one-house budget, in my opinion, and a final budget. Because a final budget, the numbers actually have to add up. And that's what we're going to be working through. But do I think any of the things they're suggesting are bad things? By and large, no. I support the tax cuts of the Senate. I support the ads of the Assembly. Our collective problem is we don't have enough money to pay for all these good things. So the next few days become, well, if something has to come off the table, what comes off the table? Hence the budget-making process. Thank you very much, guys.